Welcome to the Careers by Jen podcast, episode 271. This time on the podcast, Jen responds to a listener's question about how to manage a micromanager. Here's a solution. Put that person in a very small room filled with many very small things. Lock the door behind them and let them do their thing.
You're listening to the Careers by Jen podcast. I'm your host, Jen Swanson. This is the podcast that helps you to get the job, love your work, and advance your career. Careers by Jen is a listener-sponsored podcast, and if you like the content, please consider supporting the show as a patron. You can do so for as little as $1 a month. Head over to CareersbyJenn.com and click on support to learn more. Ever been ready to just scream because someone in your workplace is micromanaging you? Is it a coworker? Is it your manager? Wait, is it you? Are you a micromanager? If so, this episode is for you. And a big shout out to one of our listeners, Elizabeth Krajewski, for the topic suggestion. You can check out what Elizabeth is doing over on Instagram at Virtuwell Business Solutions. That's VIRTUWELL Business Solutions. Elizabeth has been a longtime Careers by Jen listener, and so I am very glad to address this topic suggestion. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right, Jen here. Welcome to the show where I help you to get the job, love the work that you're already doing even more, and or advance your career. This show is recorded on the unceded and traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including the Matsqui, the Kwantlen, the Katzie, the Semiahmoo, and the Stolo First Nations. Now, before I dive into the topic, I'm just going to ask if you've come over to the YouTube channel yet to check out my little quick career tip videos. Thank you to those of you who have come and subscribed. I really appreciate it. And if you are interested in short little video tips on the topics that help you get the job, love your work, advance your career, I'm putting out a video a week or so over there. So check it out if you have time. The easiest way to do it at the moment is to come to CareersbyJenn.com, and under resources, there's a direct link to the YouTube channel. Or I believe you can find me on the Jen Swanson right now. And I'm hoping that when I get 100 subscribers, I will change the name so that it's Careers by Jen and reflects everything else the same way. Anyway, if you've done that, thank you very much. And if you haven't yet, please check it out. All right, how to manage a micromanager. Well, first of all, what is a micromanager? That's the first question. And how do you know that that's what's going on? Well, a micromanager is someone who has authority over you, who tells you exactly what to do all the time, checks that you did it, or helpfully reminds you constantly of what you are to be doing, thereby making you feel like you have no autonomy, no critical thinking abilities, and just no ability to do your work. It's so frustrating. It's incredibly frustrating and even infuriating, especially if you do know what you're doing. And you can even feel offended that this person has little or no faith in your ability to get the work done. So why does somebody micromanage? Why would someone put all that time and energy into making sure you're doing what they think you're supposed to be doing instead of doing their own work? Well, there are lots of reasons. I've got 5 common ones to share with you before we get into what to do about it. All right. And if you happen to be a micromanager and you know that, or you have an inkling, or someone has said something to you, then maybe one or more of these reasons are the reasons why you are doing it. And it's good to have some self-reflection and think about it. It's not the worst thing in the world, but as a manager, it would be really, really good to grow and learn and to move beyond doing this, because staff retention and relationship building and trust with your employees will improve greatly if you manage without micromanaging. All right, so here are some of the 5 of the common reasons why someone might micromanage. The first one is they don't have enough to do themselves, and so they feel they have to keep tabs on exactly how and what everyone else is doing in order to justify their own existence. Now, this may be true, but there are very effective ways to manage without having to get into the minutia of it. And if you trust your employees, you don't need to be checking up on exactly how they, what color pen they use or whatever, what methodology they use to do every single little thing. The micromanager could be, in this kind of situation, bored and not have enough to do. And so need, as I said before, to feel justified in getting the big bucks that maybe they're getting. So it could simply be that they're not quite sure what to do. They don't have enough to do. And so they figure that it's their job to have their finger on the pulse of every single little detail, which is challenging. So that's one of the first reasons that people micromanage. Another reason is that the micromanager is insecure. Perhaps they're new. Perhaps they don't know exactly what it is they're supposed to be doing. A lot of managers end up being promoted into management without any management training. Sometimes it's a matter of seniority. You've been here long enough, you know how to do the job, boom, suddenly you're a manager, which is scary and challenging, not only for the employees, but even more so for the person that is now expected to shift from being a coworker into being a manager. It can be a really, really challenging and stressful time. And so it could be that this person isn't sure about what exactly they're supposed to be doing. So checking up on every little detail is one way of making sure that they are doing their own job, which they may still be in the process of figuring out. What is this person's background? Has this manager, this micromanager, had on the ground experience, or have they walked in some cases straight out of a classroom with a management degree and have mostly theoretical experience? Because honestly, it makes a massive difference to confidence levels, to how you approach the job of leadership and management if you've had some on the ground training as a manager or a leader. And sometimes the person doesn't. If they haven't come up through the ranks, and if they have just gone to get an education and haven't had any practical experience. So is this person under intense pressure from his or her boss to make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed? Micromanaging could actually, honestly, have nothing to do with you, the employee, or you, the person being micromanaged. This could be something internal going on for the person doing the micromanaging, and often that is the case. As annoying as that is, this may have nothing to do with you or the actual work that you're doing. So that's something to keep in mind. The third common reason a person micromanages is that the micromanager is a super high performer and has control freak tendencies, and it is exceedingly difficult to resist the urge to just do everything themselves. And you know what? I completely understand this. I lean toward the perfectionist camp myself, which is not a good thing. I'm not proud of that. It's part of my personality, is that I lean toward being a perfectionist. And I am a high performer. And if I'm in charge of a project, I want it done just right and just so. And I've had to really, really work on letting go of how I would do things when someone else is tasked with doing that thing. So as a clinical supervisor of healthcare students for more than 2 decades, I bit my tongue a lot because I was watching students as they learned and made mistakes and experienced doing the job I had trained them to do. And it was really, really good for me to learn how to let go and let other people grow and learn and succeed. And no, they didn't do things exactly the way I would do them because they're their own people. And so it was important for me to learn as a manager, as a leader, as a supervisor to step back. And now as a manager and a leader in the church that I serve in, there are loads of opportunities for me to not try to do it all as I work collaboratively with teams of people. And guess what? Many times other people have better ideas, are more creative, know how to do things that I don't know, and projects often turn out way better because I haven't given in to that need to do it all myself or that drive to do it all myself. Instead, have worked in a team and consciously have tried not to micromanage. But I understand the drive. I understand how this happens. And it could be that your micromanager is a super high performer with control freak tendencies. And speaking as one, a little self-awareness is what the micromanager needs. And that might be a little bit of a challenge, but we'll get to how to help that happen in a little bit. All right, the fourth thing is that the micromanager might be secretive and protective and doesn't want to share knowledge or skills. Have you ever asked a supervisor how to do something and the answer is, how do you think you should be doing that? Or you should know how to do that already. How long have you worked here? This kind of answer. In some instances, that can be helpful because sometimes if you're the kind of person who's always asking the same questions over and over and over again, it gets tiring for the person that is supervising you. And employees can get lazy. It can be really easy to lean over and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or how do I do that? Instead of using your own critical thinking. So it is important to think about it a little bit. Is this me or is this a reaction to what I'm doing? Or is this all about the other person? So it could be that kind of answer, how do you think you should do that, can be helpful in some circumstances. But if you've never done the thing before that you're asking about, or you're trying to figure out how to do it to that manager's satisfaction so that you save yourself some grief and criticism and probably more work later, then that can be an ugly response. There are some people, managers, workers even, who feel very protective of their methodologies and their knowledge, like somehow sharing it is going to diminish them or is going to not allow them to progress. It's about ego, really, and it's really not pretty. It's competitive and it's not collaborative, and it can be exceedingly challenging to deal with if you're dealing with someone who doesn't want to share any tips or tricks of the trade because they're worried that you're going to get ahead of them. That is a very challenging thing to deal with, especially in a manager. And the fifth most common reason that someone micromanages is because you need it. Yep. Maybe you are making mistakes. Maybe you aren't working fast enough, or you have not yet earned the trust of the person you report to, who then has to report to someone else. Maybe you're new and you keep making the same mistakes. Maybe you're new and you need to be micromanaged because the thing that you're doing, if you do it incorrectly, will have a massive impact. And so for safety reasons, for productivity reasons, for financial reasons, the person managing you wants to watch you closely until you have proven yourself. Maybe you haven't proven your ability in a way that allows the micromanager to back off and let you fly, as it were. So this might be the case. It might not be the case at all, but don't rule it out without considering that maybe there's something you could do that would build that trust and allow that person to let go and to let up a little. All right, so let's segue now into what to do with a micromanager, how to manage a micromanager if you are working with one or for one. Okay, the first thing to do is to dig a little, find out why this person is micromanaging if you can. Is it you? Is it fear and anxiety on their part that something will get missed or not be done up to snuff, up to standard? Is it inexperience on their part and they don't know what else they should be doing? What is the reason? And you might not want to directly ask them, because that could go not well, but you might want to think about this. Just think about it a little bit. Where did this person come from? What's their background? And how are they treating other people in your organization? Is it just you being micromanaged, or are you noticing that they're doing this to other people as well? So those would, be a bit of a detective here. Do a little bit of sleuthing and figure out why you think this person is behaving this way. The second thing that you can do that might help is to anticipate things that need doing. It gets very boring for a micromanager to constantly get the response, "Yes, I did that already," from a worker. And if you do that consistently and you do that enough, then maybe once they figure they can trust that you know what you're doing, because every time they ask you, you've already done what they have been thinking about, then they can move on to other tasks. They'll get really bored. You can even talk it out. If you are given something to do, you can say to the micromanager, "Okay, here's my game plan," and lay it all out in detail and ask, "Does that sound good to you?" Which is respectful to do of your manager. And perhaps once they know that you know what you're doing and that you have a solid plan, they can let it go and go off and do something else. You can even say, "I'm going to get busy and I'll ask for help if I need it, if that's okay, but otherwise please expect to have this done by," and then give them your deadline. And that gives them permission. I used to actually make a game out of it when I worked in the hospital as a health unit coordinator or a nursing unit clerk or unit clerk, whatever you want to call it, wherever you live. I used to make a game out of anticipating what needed doing and then doing it before anyone could even ask me to do it. And most of the time, not always, but most of the time, it made me look great. It made the manager look great. It made the manager relax and feel confident that if I was on shift, I could handle what was thrown at me. And honestly, my job was to make their jobs, all of the nursing and the doctors and the patients and the family members and the manager, my job was to make their job easier. And so when I worked from that perspective, I anticipated what needed doing next and did it. And that really prevented a lot of micromanaging. The third thing is that you might want to try is to have a heart-to-heart with the manager. And I recommend that you use your I language. If you're not sure what I language is, I do have a podcast, at least one podcast, if not two, about I language. You can also Google it and you'll find all sorts of information on how to communicate using I language. This is a non-aggressive, non-passive communication style. So it's an assertive communication style in which you begin everything by talking about your experience of it, which is less accusatory than saying you blah, 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 you do this all the time, you do that, because that instantly will put somebody on the defense. So for example, I might say, "I'm finding it very stressful that my every move is being checked up on. How would you feel if I checked in with you after lunch and let you know my progress and my plan for the rest of the day? And if I've missed anything, you can let me know then. Otherwise, I find I work best if I can just do it without interruption." Now, if the manager is insecure, this might just be the way to build trust, because you are offering respect by ensuring the manager that you will give a progress report and by letting them know that you're going to seek their help when you need it and that you're going to check what you've done with them at some point during the day. And sometimes it just takes some boundary setting. It takes some careful conversation to make everyone feel better. And sometimes open communication using your I language will truly, truly help. Sometimes people don't even know that they're hovering over you and watching every move that you make. Sometimes it's unconscious. And so being able to say, this is how I work best, and I'm getting this all done, and I definitely will check in with you. And if I've forgotten anything, please let me know at that point. I think that's perfectly respectful and perfectly legitimate. The fourth idea is to let the micromanager know that you have their back, that you're on their side, that they can get on with more important things. I mentioned this a little bit ago about permission giving. I've got this. I know that you have a ton of other things to do, so I will get this task done. And if I run into trouble, I promise I will come and consult with you, but I think I should be okay. And this is similar to the previous one, except that this is basically telling them that they have more important things to be doing. Maybe they don't know what those are, but they have more important things to be doing than to be watching you and every move that you make. So it's basically letting them know, I've got this. I know you've got 1,000 other things to do. I'll get this done. Is there anything particular you want me to make sure that I don't miss? Right? And then the fifth idea, and I think this is my last one, is to be sure that you are always improving your own skills so that you are confident that it's not you, so that you are not making mistakes all the time, so that you are certain you can be trusted to work independently. Now, one thing that does happen when you are being micromanaged with some people is that it's a good way to lose confidence in your skills and abilities because you're second guessing or you're being second guessed every step of the way. And it's really not good for anybody in the organization if this continues. People often will, rather than address a micromanager, will leave, find somewhere else to work, or will start to be rebellious or resentful, or it's nasty for the work environment. So it's important for you to do this self-reflection, introspection, make sure that it isn't you and that you are improving your skills. And if you're making mistakes, you're figuring out how to not make those same mistakes the next time. Right? I always think you should be learning and improving and growing and getting better at whatever it is you're doing, because sitting there coasting is pretty obvious. Sitting there coasting in a position, doesn't matter what position it's in, sitting there coasting is noticeable, just as noticeable as not doing your job well or doing your job exceedingly well. So it's important to make sure that you are not making mistakes as much as you possibly can help it. If that doesn't work, if none of this works and the micromanager won't stop after all the suggestions and you've tried everything, then there are a couple things you can do. You can live with it, learn to live with it, just let it go, learn to accept that this is about them needing to feel this way and not you, which may not be easy to do. But if you can go with the flow and just know that this is how this person operates and be patient and kind and compassionate, because maybe it's in their personality that they have to do this and it has nothing to do with you, as long as you're not making mistakes, then that might be what you just have to do. Or you might have to consider moving on when it's an intractable situation and you can't figure out a way to live with it. Then it might be a sign that it's time for you to consider moving on. Because honestly, sometimes there is no amount of conversation or consideration of the other person that will change the situation. So it becomes a question of how much can you manage and still feel good with yourself and with the work that you're doing. How much does this matter to you? How much does this job, this particular job that you have right now, matter to you? And only you, my friend, can answer that question. No one else can answer that question. If you've tried all of the other things, then it might come down to, can I live with this? Or is it sucking the life out of me and undermining my confidence so much that it's doing damage to my career and my plans and my confidence and my worth and all of those things? And if that's the case, then yeah, it might be time to think about, well, what else could I be doing? Is there somewhere else I could move in this organization? Or is there another organization I could move to, etc., etc.? Okay, big questions. Anyhow, I hope that was helpful to you. That is the show for today. If you liked it, please share it. And if you have any topic ideas that you would like me to address that I haven't done an episode on already, or I haven't done an episode in many months or even years, check it out. I've been doing this for a very long time, and this is episode 271. So there are lots of topics to check out. But if there is something that you would like me to address that will help people get the job, love their work, or advance their careers, I would love to know about it. So drop me a note, send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or email me through the website. info@CareersbyJenn.com is the email, and I would be pleased to consider doing your topic. Until next time, thank you for listening and take good care. You've been listening to Careers by Jenn with Jen Swanson. If you like what you heard, please share this. You know, if every single person listening today shared this episode with just one friend, our audience would be twice as big just like that. And the more people we can help with our content, the better. So help out a friend and help grow our audience by sharing this show with someone you know who would benefit from the content. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that, and together we can make a difference. Until next time, take good care.